Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the transfer portal update, as you can see there. Definitely some big time commitments coming in. Everything is obviously winding down as the portal has closed, so tons of stuff that will still be coming in, tons of commitments that are still to drop, but feels like we're coming to a little bit of a resting point, and we're coming to that part of the season where the offseason really kicks in, but the content will not stop around here, I can promise you that. But let's get into a Good Vibes Monday. Let's talk about the College Football 25 game. This has been the well I have gone back to time and again when I have to have a Good Vibes Monday, because this is the greatest thing for a lot of college football fans. Let's be honest. I grew up during the heyday of this game. 2014 was one of my favorite games ever, to be totally honest with you. I remember playing that hours on end every single day, but every single game, I think I had from 08 to 2014 every single game and played them day in and day out, and it's getting closer and closer to that game being a reality again. It looks like we're about 2.5, 1.5. It's very fuzzy on when that full reveal will come out from EA, where we'll get a gameplay, we'll get the cover athletes, we'll get so much stuff that we've been waiting so long for. We'll get tons of details, but that doesn't mean details have not come out already. It seems Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit's jobs are officially done for this game. They have made every call. They have set every name, every combination you can possibly think of. A couple interesting things did slip out when they were doing kind of different things. You know, Chris Fowler has done those videos from his office that have been just chock full of information that is very interesting. And then Kirk Herbstreit was on the Pat McAfee show and said something that I'm not sure if he was supposed to say, but I'm very glad he did, because it gave us something very interesting to talk about. It sounds like there will be different crews calling different types of games. So depending on the magnitude of the game, if it's a big time game, you'll have Chris Fowler, you'll have Kirk Herbstreit. But maybe if it's a little bit of a lower game, you'll have someone else. Maybe a Sean McDonough will be thrown in there. I wish they would add Gus Johnson and Joel Klatten to this game. I don't know that they have. I tend to believe they haven't, but I don't know. I'd be very excited to hear Gus Johnson's name on this game. So very excited for this. I think it's something that will add to the energy of the game. You know, it gets a little monotonous hearing the same voices over and over again. So knowing if, you know, you're playing a Big 12 game that is a little bit under the radar, you'll get a different group. Knowing that, you know, you'll have some different voices, you'll have Ers and Ahs within there, I think is a huge thing for this. So he also said the game is coming out in July. This has been expected for quite some time and something that has been reported on quite a bit, but very excited to hear someone, you know, with inside knowledge actually say that out loud. He did say, I think, so I don't want to necessarily hype you up too much, but definitely a very good sign there. We talked about those Chris Fowler videos that he's been releasing that have been awesome for these type of segments and kind of just getting an idea of what this game will look like. And he released one as he kind of finished up his job over the last couple of years, really. But finally, he is done, and he released a video with a ton of really interesting tidbits in there that I want to get to. Let's start with... let's start with just how much time was put into this game. It sounds like he did about 115 hours of recording over the last 2 years. So an insane amount of time and an insane amount of energy that is put into this. The editors, I'm sure, have started to sift through that 115 hours long ago, but that is a Herculean task. And then when you have you add Kirk Herbstreit into the conversation, it just gets more confusing and possibly even more people. So it's just incredible, the amount of time, the amount of man hours that have been put into this. And it's something that Chris Fowler said over and over in this video was he was just wildly impressed with what EA had to bring, how, you know, important this game is to them because they know how important it is to us. So it seems like everything is kind of setting up the right way. He also dropped some other interesting tidbits. He said in the final recording they did some booth analysis between him and Kirk Herbstreit. He said they covered if you have a quarterback that's thrown 5 picks and you keep throwing the ball. He said they'll comment on that, and so essentially they'll politely call you a dummy if you do that. He also said there was going to be if there is a scenario where you win or lose a game in triple overtime or later, where you're trading 2-point conversions. If you pick it off and take it to the other side of the end zone for a pick two, as they call it, they have a recording ready to go, and they have a wild reaction, and they have everything. So it just gives you an idea of just how detailed, just how into the weeds they got on this last, 2 years building up to this game. It feels like this game has been given the respect and the energy and the attention that I think it deserves. So he also read 700 player names. It sounded like the total number of players that opted in were about 1,200, maybe closer to 1,100. But so a certain amount were left off, probably walk-ons and deeper in the depth chart type guys. But 700 player names is quite a lot. So all of the players that you love the most, unless you're a big-time just Arch Manning guy, they will be in the game. You will hear them. That will be awesome to hear. And then another couple things that came out over the last week and weekend was Matt Brown, who writes the Extra Point newsletter, who's been just all over this. He was on J.D. Piquel's show over on 3, The Hard Count, had some very interesting details to share. One of the biggest things I took away from it, and I think what a lot of people took away from it, was the recruiting on Dynasty Mode looks like it's going to be a little bit different. It sounds like it's going to be more detailed, that you'll be able to kind of get attached to players a little bit more, see things like 40-yard dash times and size and weight and more measurables to give you an idea of just who these kids are. It makes you more excited to have that kid on your team. Make sure you get him in-house. Make sure you can incorporate them into the offense. Even if it isn't, a real player, you still have the measurables, all the things that make you so excited about a player when your team recruits them. You now have that in the game. So I think that's going to be a huge, huge thing for creating long dynasties, which is what EA, it's what EA has wanted for quite some time. Apparently, during the past iterations of this game, these dynasties have only been 3 to 5 years, somewhere in that kind of realm. And obviously, that's not what you want. I remember I definitely did probably about 4 years and then tapped out of a dynasty and started a new one because it wasn't super interesting, to be totally honest, recruiting these kids and keeping up a program where it's just kind of names and it's random generated names. It's not a lot of attachment to those players. So I think that's a huge step forward and will definitely help out those dynasties being longer in the future, being really, really long dynasties. I mean, you'll hear of guys going 60 years and doing the same team over and over again, recruiting and doing all of that type of stuff. So it'll be really cool. He said that the reveal will come out in the middle of May. People have taken that to be the 15th or the 16th, which would mean we're only about 10 days out from this thing coming out. We don't really know the exact date, but it seems like it's coming out pretty soon. We will have cover athletes, according to Chris Fowler, which brings me to the final thing that I want to talk about today, which is the cover athletes for this game. When this came out last week, I believe I talked about it briefly and gave my kind of gut reactions of who I think the cover athletes would be. And I didn't love the picks, I'll be totally honest with you. I think I have some better in me. I've thought about it a little bit more. I've seen some other predictions that have gone out. In fact, mine look a lot like J.D. Piquel's over there at On 3. I think he's someone that had a good idea, to be totally honest with you. I think this is a very, very good list from him. Now, I do have one very big difference between him and mine, but we fell in line a good bit for sure. But want to give you guys an idea of where my official predictions fall because just didn't feel very confident in the ones that I gave out before. So let's start with the Big 12. I think there's going to be 4 different guys for the 4 major conferences. I'm going to give this one to Travis Hunter. I think this is a very tough one. Obviously, it's probably going to be Shadur or him. I just tend to think there's so many great quarterbacks around the country. There's so many great stories around the country that it'd probably be better to use Travis Hunter in this slot. I think you get the cornerback wide receiver. You get both sides of the ball. You get one of the most dynamic players in the game, one of the biggest personal brands in the game. I think it would be hugely helpful. And you leave that quarterback spot for someone else that I'll get to here in a second. Patrick Payton is another guy that I think will make the cover. This is the surprise, in my opinion. I think Matt Brown said last week that one of them was going to be a surprise to him, or at least was a surprise to him. So I do think this will be the one. I think you want that Florida State helmet, you want that Florida State logo in the game. And this is one of the best players on the team. I think he could have a huge year, which would only help sales down the road. And I think he's just going to be an absolute dude. So I think that will be the pick for the ACC. Definitely a ton of guys that could have gone in that part. I had Barrett Carter as a possible one there. Cam Ward is even a wild card there, but I think Patrick Payton, could absolutely be the guy. And then I have Donovan Edwards for the Big Ten. I think you have to have Michigan in there. You just do. Returning national champions, the guy that absolutely dominated that game in Donovan Edwards. I feel like you can't pick anyone better from that Michigan team. And then finally, I do have Carson Beck. I think he is possibly the best quarterback in the country on the best team in the country. You get that Power G, that Georgia logo in there. This is the one area where I disagreed with J.D. Pickell. I think it makes sense that you would have Carson Beck on there. And one of the big reasons why I don't have Ewers and he did was Manning is going to opt into this game next year. I feel very confident about that. He said that he wants to be the starter before he opts into any of those games. He will be the starter next year. He will be in the game, likely. And if you think there's a chance they're not putting Arch Manning on this cover, you are insane. He is absolutely going to be the guy on this cover in 2026. And I definitely think, or in 2026, I believe. It'll be the 2026 game at least. I think it's a slam dunk, essentially, and you don't want to have quarterbacks from Texas back-to-back years, so I think they'll go Carson Beck, and then they'll go eventually Arch Manning the year after, but I do think these will be the four guys. I think there's plenty of incredible choices to choose from, so if it ends up being four totally different guys, I think you could still have incredible picks. You could have Shedeur Sanders and Barrett Carter and Caleb Downs and someone else. You could have Quinn Ewers. You could have any number of people on this, and I would be more than happy to buy it because I'm going to buy it regardless. It could be a black cover, and I'm going to buy it. So we'll definitely keep you guys up to date with everything going on around this game and around something that we've waited just way too long for, to be totally honest with you. The full breakdown should be coming in the next little bit, hopefully sometime in the middle of next week, I would assume, but we'll figure all that out, and once it comes out, we will break down everything that you guys need to know about this game. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram for more content and updates. We have tons of people doing incredible work around every sport you could possibly want right now, so definitely tune in to all those shows to get all the updates you can need. But thank you once again for listening, and I will see you guys tomorrow.